Make sure cameras are rolling. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just give me a pair of fucking sticks.
You should not leave your convictions behind in your vocation.
Funk and punk rock fuels my fire.
Brad's turned out to be a godsend, really.
There are a lot of drummers who can play the metal, but there are not a lot of drummers who can bring heaviness to these more jam-oriented pieces.
The cornerstone message of all the bands we've been in is that the world is not going to change itself. That is up to you.
Brad Wilk is best known as the driving force behind Rage Against the Machine. His innovative style blends precision, explosive energy, and a deep sense of groove. His ability to fuse elements of punk, metal, and hip-hop into dynamic rhythms and drum hooks has solidified his reputation as one of the most influential drummers of his generation. He's a true master of his craft and has propelled songs to greater heights with his powerful and commanding drumming. Join us as we dive into the genius of Brad Wilk. Growing up, Brad listened to all kinds of music. He listened to everything from Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin to NWA and James Brown. This blend of styles had a profound impact on his sense of groove and overall sound. Brad explained that, "I always had an innate swing in me. I also listened to a lot of Van Halen records. Alex Van Halen grew up on swing. Out of high school, I ended up going part-time to a jazz school called Dick Grove's School of Music. It taught jazz, Afro-Cuban, and percussion, and I really got into drummers like Elvin Jones. I knew that I would never be a jazz drummer. I wanted to be a rock drummer who was influenced by jazz rather than a jazz drummer who might be influenced by rock." You start to understand how Brad's versatile drumming style came about when you consider his favorite drummers.
3 favorite drummers of all time would have to be John Bonham, Elvin Jones, and Keith Moon.
It took a while before Brad's funky and loose yet energetic and precise drumming found a home, though. He was playing for the band Greta until he hooked up with the members of Rage Against the Machine. The band would go on to hit the LA club circuit in the early 90s. During this time, they signed a record deal with Epic Records and released their self-titled debut album in 1992, which exploded onto the scene in part due to the outspoken social and political lyrics.
There's a real disillusionment with the status quo, which I think that Rage is really tapping into, because I think that disillusionment is wide and it's very deep. It seems to have struck a resounding chord.
Brad's style of drumming was immediately an integral part of the band's sound. His drumming often revolves around creating tight, infectious grooves that are locked in with Tim Comerford's bass lines. He had a strong sense of pocket and rhythm, driving the band's music forward in interesting ways. In the interlude section of the same song, he lays down an iconic drum part. It features some trademark elements of his drumming like flams, single strokes, and unison hits on the snare and floor tom. And pay close attention to the swing feel here too, where Brad's playing just slightly behind the beat. One thing that really stands out in Brad's drumming is how he complements the rest of the band. The track Fistful of Steel is a great example of this, where his powerful unison hits and flams accent the other instruments, ringing in a simple but powerful open hi-hat groove. Brad's ability to write drum parts that perfectly fit the music is on full display in the song Bulls on Parade. The verse section features a drum part that's impossible not to air drum along to, and this part is definitely one of the most legendary rhythmic hooks out there. From there, Brad goes on to lay down a heavy backbeat groove, throwing in kicks on the offbeat. So far, we've heard Brad's swing feel on display in a few different tracks, and when asked about his Bonham-like swing, he said, "To me, the backbeat is everything. I spent years listening to players who play on the backbeat. Bonham is absolutely one of my biggest influences. A lot of that whole backbeat thing has to do with where you put the grace note from the same drum that comes just before the one. I really believe that that's something that's more felt than heard. We can hear Brad's swing feel in the track Bullet in the Head, specifically in the verse section where he locks in with Tim Comerford's bass line with a laid-back groove, where he also accents the offbeats on the hi-hat. And you can really hear the Bonham influence in this one. Brad's versatility and ability to blend styles of music sets his drumming apart. In the track Viet Now, you can hear some of Brad's funk influences coming through. In the verse section, he plays a steady, syncopated backbeat groove, but pay close attention to the single-stroke roll after beat 3 and the hi-hat bark on the E of beat 4.
Turn on the radio, nah, fuck it, turn it off. Fear is your only guide on the radio, nah, fuck it, turn it off. Turn it off, turn on the radio, nah, fuck it, turn it off. Fear is your only guide on the radio, nah, fuck it, you're savior by EOT.
Brad likes to make clever use of dynamics in his drum parts to complement the music. He often uses big snare and tom builds to build tension right before launching into a high-intensity groove. Brad uses an accented single-stroke roll to great effect in the bridge of Wake Up before dialing up the energy again. Listening to Take the Power Back, you'll further notice how he uses dynamics to great effect. He plays a sparse 16th note hi-hat groove with the kick drum on counts 1 and the and of beat 1, leaving space for the guitars. The chorus of this track is another great example of Brad's ability to lock in with the bass. Brad loves playing with the contrast between loud and quiet, and this can be heard in the song Guerrilla Radio, where Brad builds tension with a simple snare roll before launching into another trademark groove. This organic and musical approach is a hallmark of Brad's drumming style and was actually forged during the early jams he had with Rage Against the Machine. He explained that, "I've never felt that kind of chemistry before. From day one when I jammed with Zach and Tom, I remember Zach being this lightning bolt. There were so many different influences roaming around in the band, and it just all came out." With Rage Against the Machine, the bass and drums are always locked in together. It's part of the band's DNA and can be heard on their earliest recorded material. Check out how Brad and Tim lock in together on the track Clear the Lane off their self-titled demo tape.
Down, get down and at the same time, come up, down. The system trying to shut this up, I don't give a fuck, because the words and thoughts still hit, and like I said, it's not a skit.
The combination of bass and drums is really what makes Rage Against the Machine sound so unique. Take the verse section from Bomb Track, where Brad's groove holds its own even when it's isolated. But when you hear it in context with the rest of the band, it becomes clear just how groovy this beat really is. Every bass drum is played with purpose, and the open and closed hi-hats add further texture. The same syncopated approach can be heard in the verse section of Wake Up. Brad locks in with the bass on the kick drum, but switches up the placement of the snare to add more variety.
You're still never ready, running the lights, ready, radically poetic.
we can't talk about syncopated rage grooves without mentioning the intro part from Freedom, where Brad lays down a menacing groove, setting the energy for the rest of the track. The track Know Your Enemy is another great example of this, and you can hear Brad's swinging groove in the intro that locks in with the bass line. Another element that makes Brad's drumming so effective is how it accents important parts of the music. In the lead up to the chorus of the same track, he uses the snare and cymbal shots to emphasize Tom Morello's guitar riff. Sometimes Brad likes to dial back his drum parts, letting the guitars breathe more. To achieve this, he pulls sounds from different parts of the kit, like the cowbell groove in the intro of Township Rebellion. But Brad knows how to lay down more intricate drum parts too, as you can hear in the song Snake Charmer. It's slightly unconventional in that he's riding the snare with his right hand while occasionally moving to the floor tom. Rage Against the Machine has a unique way of blending different genres together while still maintaining their own sound and style. The track Year of the Boomerang is a great example of this, which is played in 5/4. It can be tempting to call Brad's drumming simple, but in reality it's super effective, often stripping away anything unnecessary. In the track People of the Sun, Brad enters with a slick fill, ending with a hi-hat bark, before flying into a groove that propels the song forward.
Yeah. We gotta turn the bass up on this one. Check it. Yeah. Turn the bass up on this one. Check it. Shit, 1516.
By the time their third album, The Battle of Los Angeles, rolled around, the band had hit its stride and already gone platinum multiple times over. This record chronicles the class conflicts that were happening in LA at the time.
Rage Against the Machine is a band that is a unique product of this city. It's a band that couldn't have happened anywhere else. And in the tradition of groups like The Doors and X and Jane's Addiction, it's a band that you can hear. You can hear the city in every note.
The track Testify captures the working class anger in both lyrics and music. Tom Morello's dissonant guitar effects combined with Brad's powerful, imposing groove creates a unique soundscape. A similar approach is heard in Sleep Now in the Fire, where Brad puts down a driving groove on the ride that's embellished with tasty ghost notes, which complements the percussive vocals. Brad's sludgier approach to playing can be heard in tracks like Calm Like a Bomb. In the chorus, Brad's offbeat groove perfectly complements Tom Morello's heavy riff while playing off the bass line and changing orchestration with his right hand.
Watch I say, watch I say, watch I say, what?
Only 1 year later, the album Renegades came out, and this record consisted of covers from numerous artists, mostly from the West Coast. Their cover of Microphone Fiend by hip-hop artists Eric B. and Rakim is particularly interesting, giving it their own twist. Brad pulls off a stripped-down drum part with a broken 16th note hi-hat rhythm, which works perfectly in context with the rest of the music.
E-F-F-E-C-T, a smooth operator operating correctly. E-F-F-E-C-T, a smooth operator operating correctly.
Putting together creative cover songs can be tricky, but Renegades of Funk, a remake of the 1983 track by Africa Bambaataa, is a great example of how a cover can be turned into something truly unique. It's hard not to nod your head to Brad's funky breakbeat groove in the breakdown section, which is reminiscent of the funky drummer beat and is accompanied by some overdubbed percussive elements. you thought Bruce Springsteen and Rage Against the Machine don't mix well, their cover of The Ghost of Tom Joad is here to prove you wrong. Brad's dynamic drumming brings new life and energy into the track. Rage Against the Machine's live performances were legendary. The intensity of the jumping crowd at the end of this 1993 performance at Pink Pop reportedly caused seismic sensors in the neighborhood to send out earthquake alarms. During his tenure with Rage Against the Machine, Brad's setups were relatively straightforward but super effective. This minimalistic approach on the first album especially allowed him to focus on delivering tight rhythms that complemented the band's sound. He even replaced the rack tom with cowbells, saying that, "For that first record I replaced the tom in the front with a couple of cowbells just for the challenge while we were working on the music. I did it just to see how it would make me play. I thought it was cool. I was into keeping it like that and playing the album that way." These cowbells are prominent in the intro of Killing in the Name, making the transition into the verse that much more unique. So for this video, we chose to use an 80s Gretsch square badge kit modeled after one of the setups Brad Wilk played with Rage Against the Machine. We have the same cymbal setup, the same sizes that Brad used, the cowbells on the side, and the Rage Against the Machine bass drum head. Brad Wilk enjoyed a prolific career outside of Rage Against the Machine. After De La Rocha left the band in 2000, the remaining members formed a supergroup called Audioslave with former Soundgarden frontman Chris Cornell.
First time we got together, we just jammed together and we decided, well, let's just try writing some songs.
I got there and figured I'm gonna know within 10 minutes. And within 10 minutes, I knew that it would be great.
There was a chemistry between the four of us that was there, and that is not an easy thing to find. You can find someone who's great, but when you put them in a situation, if the chemistry's not right, it's not gonna be good. And so I feel very fortunate that one, we got one of the greatest singers, and two, the chemistry worked.
Brad had to adapt and change his approach to the drums slightly in comparison to his time with Rage Against the Machine. He explained that, "With Chris, I realized right away when I would play percussive stuff over his lush vocals, I found myself yielding to the song, holding back a little, going underground and finding the intricacies of my playing in the ghost notes and grace notes. That was so challenging for me." Brad was definitely up for the challenge, and the band released 3 albums in the early to mid-2000s. On the track Like a Stone off their first self-titled album, you can hear Brad's more restrained but no less musical approach. He holds down a solid groove throughout, throwing in more ghost notes in the verse section and accenting the hi-hat on the and of beat 4.
And on my deathbed, I will pray to the gods and the angels like a
But there was still plenty of space for Brad's hard-hitting drumming to shine. In the rock anthem Cochise, he lays down a heavy and foreboding tom groove in the intro. Before flying into an assertive groove that complements the soaring riff in Chris's vocals. Brad's musical approach is evident in the track Be Yourself. In the bridge section, he lays down a melodic tom groove, allowing Chris's vocal to take center stage. The payoff for this section is when Brad gradually dials up the intensity again with a big snare and floor tom build before flying into a solid groove in the chorus. You can hear Brad taking a similar approach in the verse section of Doesn't Remind Me, laying down another melodic tom groove.
I like gypsy moths and radio talk, 'cause it
As you all know, Brad is more than capable of pulling off busier drum parts. In the track Your Time Has Come, he starts to unleash around the kit a little bit more than usual. By the time the Revelations album rolled around in 2006, the band started to bring an old-school R&B vibe to their signature mix of riffs and soaring vocals. In the same vein, Brad unleashes a groovy 4-bar pattern in the track Sound of a Gun, which is perfectly orchestrated around one of the band's trademark unison riffs. In 2012, Brad received a call from the legendary producer Rick Rubin asking if he'd be interested in playing on the new Black Sabbath album. Being a huge fan of Bill Ward, he knew he had big shoes to fill, saying, "I grew up wanting to be Bill Ward and trying to learn those records on vinyl, playing parts over and over again. The first Black Sabbath record I heard was actually Master of Reality, and I remember hearing the way he played and how he played that kick drum just after the snare drum, just after the 2 count. It was so distinctly Bill. I copped that at an early age, and you hear it in Rage songs." Even though it took a little bit for Brad to get comfortable in this new setting, he eventually settled in.
I remember when I first walked in, I just couldn't help but feel like the 14-year-old kid that was, sitting with the record player, listening to the Black Sabbath records.
Oh, hell.
After about a week and a half, kind of settled in and realized that they poop and pee just like me.
The final Sabbath album, called 13, was released in 2013, with Brad featured on the entire record. The single God Is Dead stands out, with Brad's swung sense of groove fitting right in with the rest of the band.
Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Wondering.
The track End of the Beginning features some really cool drum parts, from the slow, dark, and sludgy bridge section with thundering tom rolls, through to a more upbeat verse with a heavy yet bouncy groove from Brad. But the chorus has my favorite groove, with Brad laying down an intricate ride bell pattern that would make Bill Ward proud.
If you don't know which way to go, you may feel lost and confused. A second chance, you're done.
On the track Loner, Brad puts on a clinic, laying down some high-octane drumming in the verse section, complete with 30-second note fills around the kit. It takes a special musician to take on drumming for such a legendary band like Black Sabbath. But Brad had that unique blend of power and funk which made the rest of the band feel at ease.
I've worked with Brad before, and he's great to work with. It's a tough job drumming in Black Sabbath because there are a lot of drummers who can play the metal, but there are not a lot of drummers who can play the blues and jazz and bring heaviness to these more jam-oriented pieces that are part of what Black Sabbath does.
Brad's turned out to be a godsend, really.
Brad dipped his toes in many different genres over the years. His style of drumming lent itself quite naturally to hip-hop, and he contributed on Cypress Hill's 2000 album Skull and Bones. He has a songwriting credit on the track Can't Get the Best of Me, which incorporates elements of Rage Against the Machine's aggressive sound.
And when you test me, you better freestyle, cause mine can go on and on and on for miles. You can't get the best of me. Can't get the best of me.
Brad also wrote a track for Snoop Dogg with Tom Morello and Tim Comerford called Snoop Bounce. You can hear their fingerprints all over the song, with heavy riffs and commanding drums leading the charge. From late 2014 until June 2015, Brad also toured with Smashing Pumpkins, filling in for Jimmy Chamberlain. And switching gears yet again, Brad would go on to join the rap rock supergroup Prophets of Rage in 2016. The band was composed of all Rage Against the Machine members besides Zach De La Rocha, as well as DJ Lord and Chuck D from Public Enemy, and rapper B Real of Cypress Hill. In their self-titled track, Brad lays down a solid groove to support the furious vocals, embellishing it with signature 16th note hi-hat rhythms that fit perfectly with the overdub shaker part.
With vice, I hold the mic device. With force, I keep it away, of course. And I'm keeping you from sleeping. And on the stage of rage, and I'm rolling to the core.
The chorus features some trademark high-octane drumming from Brad, and here he lays down a punk-inspired syncopated groove that leaves just enough space for the rest of the instruments, followed by a fast fill around the kit to keep the momentum high.
Kick it like, clear the way. Clear the way. Clear the way. Clear the way for the prophet of rage. Kick it like, clear the way. Clear the way. Clear the way. Clear the way for the prophet of rage. Kick it like.
In 2017, the band released their one and only self-titled album, and the first single is loaded with powerful anti-authoritarian messages.
Fuck the world. Papa D hit home like a bull zone. Check America's pulse, heard a death tone. Division hitting like a bullet to precision. Killed the dream, killed the vision. Now listen.
But as the intensity builds towards the end of the track, Brad starts turning up the momentum, accenting shots and riffs in powerful ways that are very reminiscent of the days in Rage Against the Machine.
Fuck the world.
When all is said and done, Brad has proven himself as a versatile drummer across a variety of different styles. He's been able to adapt and change his approach to the music, which is the hallmark of not only a great drummer, but a great musician. When asked about how he approaches these different projects, he's explained, "The best thing a drummer can be at the end of the day is a great listener. I think it only makes you a better drummer. Every time you add a different piece to the chemistry in the room, it's going to change how I play. A lot of it is looking at how we're going to fill or not fill up the frequency chart. Where will each one of us find our places in it?" Alright, there you have it, the genius of Brad Wilk. With his dynamic rhythms and explosive drumming, he cemented his place as one of the most unique drummers of his generation. His groundbreaking work with Rage Against the Machine and his ability to blend power and groove while writing enduring rhythmic hooks secures his legacy as a true master of the craft. Now, before you go, make sure you leave a comment below and let me know one thing that you've learned from listening to Brad Wilk. And also stay tuned for the next episode in the Genius Of series, which is about the prog rock pioneer Bill Bruford from Yes and King Crimson. There's a link down below, drumeo.com/trial, and you can try Drumeo free for 7 days. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.